12 News is your local election headquarters. Now we continue our Where They Stand series on WPRI.com. I'm Raymond Bakari. Joining us today is Camron Segalla, who is one of two Democrats running for mayor of Pawtucket in this year's September primary. Camron, it's good to have you here.
Thank you, Raymond, for having me here.
In 60 seconds or less, why do you want to be mayor?
I'm running for mayor to put the power back into the hands of the people. I think people are tired of the way the current administration is going, and their voices aren't being heard. So I'm running to be their advocate. If they can't advocate for themselves, I want to be an advocate for them and advocate the policies and the changes they want to see in their city.
Looking at education for a moment, it's a key issue not only throughout the state, but also city to city, town to town. In Pawtucket, there's going to be that new unified high school being built where McCoy Stadium is. But that aside, as mayor, what else would you do to improve educational outcomes?
I would like to see more funding go into education in general, but I would like to see more after-school programs for students of all ages to be able to have activities and things that they can do. I would like to see work programs for high schoolers to be able to give them more opportunities to branch out into different job fields. I'd like to see a career and technical school be built, just similar to Davies, in Pawtucket. A lot of Pawtucket students actually go over to Davies, and to have something in Pawtucket would be more convenient, for students in Pawtucket. And I think a lot of students would benefit from that. I've been looking at the numbers, and I've seen that dropout rates have ranged from 10% to 13% over the past 4 school years. But this the 2022-2023 school year, I see the dropout rate has risen to close to 20%. And I think that's unacceptable. And same thing with graduation rates. We've seen a steady decline from around 80%. We're down to 69% as of this the 2022-2023 school year. I'm waiting to see the most recent school year to see where those numbers are going, but the trends aren't looking good. So we got to get kids motivated to be excited about school and to start giving them more classes and opportunities to engage them in school again and to get those numbers back up. A lot of it has to do with COVID policies. We switched over to online learning, virtual learning, and it affected a lot of students. I've heard from people that I know that were in school. My brother actually, he was in school during the COVID era, and it affected him as well. He did graduate, but he just kind of checked out his last 2 years because, what's the point? You're virtual, you're not really getting engagement with the teacher and other students, and it really affects mental health, it affects your motivation to be involved in school. So I think we have to seriously address those issues, and I just don't see the current administration doing that. So whatever I can do to work with the school department, the superintendent, with the school committee to get those changes going and to really motivate these kids to get back to learning, I'm going to do whatever I can.
The city's also going to be getting a soccer stadium. This is where Rhode Island FC will end up playing once that's done. But I want to focus on the part that there's a little bit of unknown about, which is the housing units that are supposed to be across the river. What will you do in your capacity as mayor to ensure that project, that part of the project ends up happening?
The cost of the project has risen substantially over the past few years. Nobody's expecting that. And we've put in $10 million of ARPA funding to that project, and to see that housing is possibly off the table is upsetting, because I think that was the most essential part of that project. We need affordable housing in Pawtucket. There's people sleeping on the streets right now, hundreds of people sleeping on the streets. I know it myself, I experienced homeless myself, and that's one of my biggest issues, is to get homeless people in permanent housing. There's not enough temporary housing right now, and there's definitely not enough permanent housing. So to see that off the table is upsetting, and I'll do whatever I can to ensure that that goes through. But with limited funds from the city, it's a difficult situation. So the whole project itself, I was never a fan of the soccer stadium. That was my neighborhood, so they kind of tore down the area where we used to hang out as kids, and they put up a stadium that nobody really asked for. I mean, not in Pawtucket and not statewide. And it's funds from the states, from funds from the city, it's federal funding. Nobody asked for it. And it's right now, it's, as others have said, it's fiscally irresponsible, and it's a risky project. We don't know if we're going to get the money back. So whatever I can do to make sure it's a successful project, I'm going to try. And if there's a lane to end the project and go in a different direction, I'd be willing to do that as well. But
So just to clarify for the housing units part, though, as mayor, you would advocate, just to clarify for your home, you would advocate for the housing units to still go up?
Absolutely. Whatever we can do to keep those there, that would be my main priority.
Got it. There's a statistic I want to get your thoughts on / how you address as mayor. The Department of Health released data showing overdose deaths in Rhode Island went down by 7.3% last year. However, Pawtucket had the third highest rate of fatal overdose deaths after Woonsocket and Providence. That stat is 46.6 deaths per 100,000 people. Two-parter here. What's your reaction to that number, and how would you go about lowering that as mayor?
It's upsetting, first of all. We have seen an increase over the years, but the past 2 years we actually have seen a decrease, and it's leveled out. I believe in 2 years ago it was at 3 years ago it was at its highest level, and it has decreased. And I want to shout out the police department. They have increased their use of Narcan, and I've read through their annual reports, and I see that they're utilizing that. So I'm hoping that's part of the decline. But overall, I think drug use is a problem in the city, especially among the homeless, and because there's that sense of hopelessness, anxiety, depression, and that's citywide, not just for people that are experiencing homelessness. We need to address that. If it's the root cause of the problem, drug use is so prevalent because people don't know what to do. They don't, they're experiencing trauma, they're experiencing all those different emotions, and sometimes people use drugs as a means to cover that up. Fentanyl specifically has been a serious issue, and it's leaked into the legal drug supply across the board. So that's something that we need to address. We need more addiction recovery units for people to go to, and programs for people to be able to get on the right track. I mean, it all starts with getting people into housing, and I think that we would see a dramatic decrease in those numbers if we did focus on the people experiencing homelessness and getting them into housing. I think that would help a lot.
For my last question, I'm going to focus on the office of mayor of Pawtucket itself. They don't have term limits. What that means for those watching is if you are mayor and you want to seek re-election, it's a 2-year term. You can do so continuously so long as you keep getting re-elected. There are more and more cities and towns that are getting term limits on the books. Pawtucket, or no, not Pawtucket, sorry. Warwick, Cumberland, Central Falls, Johnston, Providence, Cranston. Do you support term limits for mayor of Pawtucket?
Absolutely, it's one of my main policy platforms. I'm not running to be mayor forever. I'm actually one of the reasons I'm running is to actually put limits on this office. Whether that means we go in Warwick's approach where we extend the term to 4 years and limit it to 2, or we keep it at 2 and we limit it to 4 or 5 2-year terms. However, the people decide, And I feel that way about city council as well. There should be limits on that. And I think people of Pawtucket want to see that as well. So we would, of course, go through that process to have them vote on that, and ultimately they'll decide whether or not they want term limits. And I think they would be very favorable of that.
That's all the questions I had. Cameron, I want to thank you for giving us your time for this interview.
Thank you.
And thank you for tuning into this edition of Where They Stand. Remember, 12 News is your local election headquarters. We have other candidate interviews as well as a voter guide available on WPRI.com. For now, Raymond Bakari, 12 News.